Again, like, now that I say it, a lot of people didn't believe me when I said it then. A lot of people don't believe half the stuff I say, frankly, even when I'm streaming. But, like, the only goal that I had was to not make a fool of myself and lose rating points.
All right, here we go. Another episode of the C-Squared podcast. We have an exciting one. We're here after the American Cup just finished. Just a couple of hours ago, we have the two winners with us, Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura and Grandmaster Irina Krush. Guys, welcome to the show. Welcome back to you, Hikaru. You've been on the podcast previously. Let's start with the tournament.
Sure. So,
talk about it.
Yeah, as far as my event went, it was very difficult. I mean, it felt smooth for the first couple of rounds. I won in classical chess against both Sam Sevian and Lenier Dominguez. Then against Wesley, I mean, I had this very tough first match. The second match was very tough, which I lost. And I won today another very, very difficult match where it seemed like whoever made the last blunder would lose. So I'm very happy that I won, but it certainly wasn't easy.
Yeah, Irina, your trajectory seemed quite smooth, it felt. But you did meet this incredible opponent, Alice Lee, on the way.
Yeah, so
Tell
it's
us
like
about that.
2 years in a row that we have kind of a similar scenario where I'm facing Alice in the finals of the Champions bracket, and then I face her again after she gets back from the elimination bracket. You know, in a way, it's not a surprising scenario, right? Like, it's definitely something that is plausible that can play out, although, of course, it can also be very different, right? Because you're not guaranteed to get there. Yeah, last time I was able to win all my games in the classical without having to play any shorter time controls. And this year was definitely more challenging. I mean, actually, the critical moment for me was the finals of the Champions bracket, for sure. Like, that was like just a very difficult day, you know, where I was trying to win with the black pieces. I really thought I had a good chance to just kind of seal the match there. And when I didn't, and I almost nearly lost even, and then I had to come back again, and that was worse with black, and I was like, you know, I would say on the verge of losing, and then I pulled that one out and win, and then I have to go on to kind of win again as white. I mean, it was just like kind of it's a day that you're going to remember for a long time.
Yeah, and it almost felt like you guys at some point were expected, or at least it felt that way, the energy felt that way, that you guys were expected to finish the championship, get the title, and then you didn't. And then you had to go back to the drawing board and, you know, regroup and things of that nature. Like, tell us about that.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll start. I think for me, a lot of people have wondered, like, what happened. Actually, I'll go back in time. A lot of people have wondered what happened when I played this game against Dingler and the final round of the candidates. And I had this feeling when I was playing that game, sort of like I just wanting the event to be over, just wanting it all to be over. Like, it wasn't even about the result, like winning, drawing, or losing, but wanting it to be over. And I felt like yesterday I had that same feeling when I played Wesley. It was like, I'm just expecting it to be over. Like, of course, the only way it's over is if I win, but I'm sort of expecting that. And then there were some critical moments in that first tiebreaker game where it didn't work out for me. And then when I lost that, obviously the second game wasn't even close. And so I had this feeling, and then sort of to regroup, I mean, I actually didn't do anything with chess last night. I didn't do a recap. I basically just went out, I played pool, I had some beers, and just forgot about everything. And so for me, it was just resetting, because coming into the event, and again, like, now that I say it, a lot of people didn't believe me when I said it then. A lot of people don't believe half the stuff I say, frankly, even when I'm streaming. But, like, the only goal that I had was to not make a fool of myself and lose rating points in classical. That's the only goal I had. So when I put it in perspective last night, where not only did I not lose points, but I gained points in classical, that already was a victory. So I just sort of forgot about everything else and the way I'd gotten there, and just reset. And I found a way, but still, even today, I mean, there were moments when I probably could have lost.
I was curious about this moment earlier in your tournament, because you had drawn the first game against Lenier. This was the second match, right?
Yes.
And then you're playing with the black pieces. And we see often in these matches that a quick draw happens, goes to tiebreak, where you would, generally speaking, be the favorite against Lenier. But instead you played a very risky opening the Kalashnikov. It felt almost like you kind of planned to win that game with the black pieces rather than going for a tiebreak. And then you just, like, crushed him with black.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't the plan, but I prepared the opening before the event, and I thought it was a reasonable try. So I think when you look at top-level chess, and maybe in particular when you're looking at an event with players who have played each other so many times and we're also familiar with everyone's style, I just thought it was a great surprise. And so it wasn't the plan. And also, I would say that I was actually very upset when I didn't win the first game, because I had this very, very good position. I think most of the time, I would say probably 80% of the time, I think I win that position around when I played bishop h3 in this middle game. But it wasn't the plan, but I had this prepped anyway for Sevian, so I thought, why not use it? And it worked out very beautifully, but again, for every time that it works out, there probably are going to be like 5 times that it doesn't work out, so you just have to pick the right moment, and it was surprising, but yeah, that's how it goes.
And you were also the only player to win a classical game for, was it the entirety of the event? Did anyone else win a classical game in the event?
No. It was 2 games in the open section, and then in the women's section there were quite a few, I think. Quite a few decisive games. Did you have any of these type of openings prepared? This type of like sharp openings prepared without?
I think that's all my openings were kind of like, well, I've played the Sicilian a few times, Sicilian Con. And yeah, actually I did a lot of kind of experimentation in the openings. Like I just jumped around from one to another, and it's kind of hard to catch. And I think that, that was a pretty successful strategy.
I feel like this was pretty much the case for everybody. And I don't know, maybe you can jump in on this one as well, Fabi. Did you have any sort of like sharp ones due to the fact that the time control is so short and you don't have a second time control? Did that go into the match strategy, the tournament strategy?
Well, I didn't really think up a strategy, and then during the second game against Wesley, and I had a chance to take on e6, and I was just kind of worried about it because like my time was getting low. So the time control was probably affecting me a bit negatively in terms of my thoughts when I should have just gone for it.
Yeah.
But I was a bit curious because you tend to play the Sicilian in very sharp openings. But sometimes in these match situations, you win the first game, and then the like desire is to rock up a bit.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like changing your repertoire in those like must-draw games?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good idea, right? It depends on what you have available. Like to be honest, it's just like I know the Sicilian so much better than I know anything else that like I tend to have to like find what Sicilian line I'm going to go for, right? Like, if I knew the Petrov as well as I know the Sicilian, I think I would go for that. Yes, yeah, I agree.
Speaking of the Petrov, Wesley played the Petrov as well, a couple of games. That was completely unexpected, yeah? Is this the first time he plays the Petrov?
It's always a surprise for me when like Berlin players change, because if you're a Berlin player, it feels like why would you ever change? It's just such a solid opening, especially in these matches. But it seems like people also want to experiment a bit. I was also surprised when Wesley switched to Petrov and when you switched to Kalashnikov. But yeah, it's like from a white point of view, it's a real pain.
Sam came up with some ideas, in the Berlin in his match against Ray. It felt like he got like.
He was going for the end game. I was impressed that he was going for very, very direct lines and finding some chances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're going for the most solid line as black to make a draw against e4, what would be your choice, Fabi?
Like assuming I know it perfectly, which I don't, then it would be the Berlin. I feel like that's where the opponent has the least amount of leeway to create winning chances or like opening chances.
Yeah.
But I think like Hikaru would be a much better person to speak on this.
No, I mean I would say if you can know it perfectly, the Petrov is the best. But that's only if you know it perfectly, because there are more chances to confuse the issue and make it very complicated in the Petrov than the Berlin. So it's a smaller window. But if you know it perfectly, I think the Petrov is objectively the best.
Well, you avoid the entire Italian, which is like a lot of people's refuge for finding some...
what about against d4?
Well,
I'm sorry. Give me some opening advice here, Fabi.
No, I think a lot of people have like switched to the Queen's Gambit accepted because it's so direct. You avoid the Ninzo, you avoid the Catalan, and like when I was working with Rustam, he was like, "We're going to kill d4 with the Queen's Gambit accepted," and then everyone made fun of me for playing the Queen's Gambit accepted. But then it like recently gained so much popularity. Like Wesley was playing Levon. Yeah, even Maxime, which was like a shock to me. How could Maxime not play the Grunfeld and Najdorf?
Hikaru, you haven't played in like 9 months. I mean, obviously, whenever you go into a tournament, you have certain emotions. But when you haven't felt those type of emotions for like 9 months, like what was going through your head?
Well, I mean I didn't feel those emotions until it actually mattered, which was basically the last 3 days. I think the main thing is when you haven't played for a long time, when you can get positions that are very stable and very like positional and quiet, it's better than having like these really confrontational games. Like if I had this game against Linear in the first round, I don't know if I would have won that game because I hadn't played so much, and having a few games under my belt, it was a lot easier. So I think for me, the emotions definitely didn't play a role until I suddenly realized that I was on the verge of winning the tournament. But I would also say that, like, separate of nerves or any of that stuff, I think that when you're playing against a player like Wesley, without that practice, there's certain mistakes that I was making, specifically like the last 2 days. Every game I was up on time. I was up maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and my reactions to what in those situations were not the best. And I think that's specifically because I was out of practice, but it seemed to still be good enough.
One of those games is probably the first Berlin that you lost in the 10+5. When it felt like you got a great position, that knight coming to f4, h5, h4, and it felt like you were getting there first. And then you stopped finding the way through, and then he was just pushing his pawns and caught you up on time, things of that nature, and then pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just sort of the situation. It became too much, and I thought I was better. I was expecting to win. I couldn't find a breakthrough, and there were a couple of moments where I could have made some repetitions and made some draws, and I didn't do that, and I let the pressure get to me. That's the simplest way of putting it, and it was very unfortunate, of course, but that's Wesley's a great player, and sometimes you can't always win.
That's true. What was your most difficult moment in the cup?
Well, I think that game in the champions bracket, probably the one with black, this rook end game that I nearly lost. I think that was pretty difficult. I mean, I was so difficult that at some point I made a move, like I gave up my rook, like a move earlier than I had to.
Yeah.
Like literally just an unexplainable move. And the computer is still saying zeros. Well, that's nice for me, but the move makes no sense. Like, why did I play? You can't even explain it. I could have done it with a move later and I definitely wouldn't be losing. So I was kind of lucky. I was lucky to be looking at my position and realizing, no, I'm still okay. But yeah, I mean, you can feel that something is like wrong in your head if you're playing moves like that.
Yeah.
Did you see a clear win for her in that endgame?
No.
Okay.
And when I looked at it with the computer, I mean, honestly, the computer is like +7 or +8 is based on like some one move, and if she doesn't make that move, she can actually lose, which like, so it was not really like that obviously winning for her at all, and especially in this time situation. Yeah, that was fortunate.
Yeah, it looked rather scary. 2 pawns barreling down.
Yeah, like there was some move rook a5 that you had to see.
It's always move by move.
Yeah.
One thing about, because she never beat you before that game. And you guys have played like so many times against each other, also in Rapid and Blitz, Classical as well. And then whenever you have this type of situations with a specific player and then they beat you once, there are some doubts creeping in. Like, what if he continues or she continues beating me and things of that nature? Was anything like that going through your mind?
Not really, because just the nature of the game, I felt like I did so much to lose myself, that it was like, I mean, I had the most comfortable position you could ever dream of, no danger on the horizon, and I definitely felt like, the reason that I lost was so much of my bad decisions, that in a way, you look at it and you're like, okay, how could this happen? You had so many opportunities not to do this, you just like literally committed suicide. So, I mean, no, I didn't feel overall like now I'm going to start like losing, now that I've started this streak. I just felt like I needed to play better.
Because you have the same whenever you beat somebody for the first time and then you're like, I can do this all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I would assume the reverse is also possible. Cool.
Hikaru, I was just one last question. I'm curious because you've played so many matches against Wesley, especially recently. You played this very, very long and tight match in the Global Championship last year. And you both seem to be rather evenly matched in general. Do you feel like there's certain time controls that favor him more so and certain time controls that favor you more so?
Yeah, so it's weird. I mean, I think certainly online I've never felt that Wesley is any slower than I am, but over the board, at least over the last couple of days, I think in the Blitz I'm just a huge favorite against him. Just also because like in the 10 minutes and the 25 minutes I was always up on time. Now, mind you, I am moving a lot quicker than I ever used to, so that does play some role. But I think in the Blitz I'm a big favorite. I would say in 25, I think Wesley is maybe a slight favorite. I think at 10, it just depends on the position, and Blitz I'm definitely the favorite. So that's how I would break it down.
And how would you assess your own Blitz play? Because I guess stylistically you've changed over, let's say, the last 10 years compared to 10 years ago when you were also one of the best in the world at Blitz. Do you feel like certain aspects of your game have improved and certain aspects have perhaps gotten a bit weaker?
Yeah, so it's very hard to judge because I think I feel like Rapid is like this very unhappy place for me where when I play Classical I can still move very fast, and then when I need to slow it down I can take the time in the critical moments. And Rapid I felt like it's like I'm moving too quickly and then I don't know what I'm doing. I start using too much time. So I think that generally it's very, very hard to judge, but I would say these days I like quiet positions more than tactical positions certainly, and I've obviously been very good at blitz for a long time, but I think when I go up against Wesley specifically, the biggest issue I think for both of us is that we play pretty much the same openings with white and black to a T. It's not just, there's maybe like one or two openings he plays the Italian. I don't really play the Italian much. I play the English. He doesn't really play the English, but that's about it. Everything else is identical. Play the same opening, same variations, same sidelines, and so I think when we face each other specifically, it's for me. I feel like I'm just trying to get it down to blitz or get it to less and less time, and then I think I can find my way through when all is said and done. But obviously, I think for the fans, it was a great match, and I think it was a great conclusion to the event as a whole.
Were you worried at all about the 10+5 time format? Because it felt like Wesley was putting a lot of pressure in pretty much every single game. White, black, like he was managing somehow to outplay you in the middle game.
Well, I felt like Wesley in the 25-minute, the Berlin game, he did outplay me in that late middle game into the end game with the Bishops, but he had 25 minutes. I think if we had played that game with 10 minutes on the clock.
The recent one, the last one.
Yeah, the one where
I
the two
think
Bishops.
you were very close to it.
But I was also very close to losing it at critical
true,
moments as well. But for example, in the 10+5, I think today the first game, which I was close to losing at one moment, was more my own doing than his.
Yeah.
Like when I did like my recap earlier, I spoke about how I thought Wesley was a better player today, and the reason I say that is because when I played this whole line with knight h7, knight g5, and the Italian and d5, I thought I was better. And so my decisions, which led to me getting a worse position, were specifically because I refused to take a draw. And so it was more self-inflicted, and I felt like Wesley outplayed me in that game. But it obviously was a tough decision, too, because in the 10+5, since I had white in the second game after drawing the first one, I had the option to try and make a quick draw.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure whether I should do that, get forced to blitz where I think I'm a big favorite, or just go for it. But when all was said and done, I decided to go for it simply because I thought, why waste a white?
Yeah.
Why waste my white game if I have that chance?
Guys, go ahead, Fabi.
I was just curious just about the last moment in the last game, where you won the tournament. What do you think caused him? Was it just tiredness, or what caused him to take that pawn on d2?
Yeah, I think Wesley was just tired at that point. I think he also overestimated my position. I think he thought I was getting pretty scared with the knight on e5, maybe the bishop on c4, the rook's on the f-file. I think he basically saw some ghosts. And I have to say, like today, whether it's confidence related or not, like I felt that Wesley was better, and I was sort of just like, play one good game, or if there's one mistake that he makes, that's all that it takes to win the match. And I was just somewhat fortunate, but when all is said and done, I think overall I probably played the best out of anyone, so I guess it's deserved.
Guys, thank you very much for taking the time. This is after dinner, after the championship, so there wasn't a lot of rest. Thanks for taking time.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, here we are. We're back. We have Mr. Yasser, as well as international arbiter Judit Sztaray, who conducted the event alongside Chris Bird. Judit, welcome to the show. Yasser, you've been on the show before, so I'm still going to welcome you.
I'm shocked that you've invited me back.
Me too.
Yeah,
I was trying to convince him.
What happened?
Best shows.
Oh, I know what it is.
What is it?
I offered my apartment as a place to do the podcast, and you felt obliged to.
There you go.
invite me.
There you go.
It's not nice
I'm
to ignore
returning the
those.
favor, but
Thank you.
you guys were a bit loud in the back.
Yes,
you guys are having a lot of fun. What's happening here?
Well, I've got a full house, in truth. The American Cup open section and ladies section has been completed, and all that stress that has been built up over the last 2 weeks, it's being dissipated as we speak. Everybody's telling stories, and it's nice to just chill.
Judit, how was, from your perspective, how was the American Cup from an arbiter's perspective? This was a different format, a different playing venue. I know there was one bathroom for like 16 players. That might have been a problem.
Yes.
Awkward. What problems did you guys have?
Not too many problems. The format is great. I love it. As Irina said before one of her interviews that she likes this format. I fully agree. It's also similar to what we do in chess.com. So I really like it. Bathroom, yeah, it was an issue, but I think whenever it was occupied, we actually escorted players down to the second floor, so we had backup options. And
Did you have any bathroom problems?
No, I would just wait. I didn't know that was an option.
hold it back. Yeah, and I mean, Chris
Zen, and it would disappear.
But that problem also seems to solve itself as people get eliminated.
Exactly.
Yeah. The number of people at the bathroom.
You guys had, we saw it on the camera. I think Irina at some point when she almost flagged against Alice Lee, and then she was saying something, I believe, to you or to Chris. I'm not
No,
100%
it
sure
was
to
a
do-
general dislikement of the voice.
The light? Okay.
No, there were some discussion on the other side of the room, and she didn't like that she's being disturbed under time pressure. So I fully agree with her. Chris acted fast and resolved the problem, and that's it.
Yeah, and I feel this was one of the problems, right? Because you guys had to balance the end time of one portion, one format, with the start time of a different format. So I would assume this was a bit of an issue.
Yeah, but
at
I mean,
times.
it got resolved fast, and it turned out well for her, right?
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
What is the biggest dispute you've had to resolve during a chess game or a chess tournament?
This chess tournament, there was really not a issue. The one time was that between Wesley and Hikaru, there was a threefold claim, and I actually didn't know the rule perfectly, how that I have to make, Hikaru paused the clock, claimed the threefold, and told me what the move is, and I thought that, okay, he can make the move, and Chris later told me that, nope, I have to make the move, because if the player touches the piece, that's still, even though under pause clock and under claim, but then it happened again, and then I did it correctly.
And how about generally, not just in this event, but in general in your practice as an arbiter, have you resolved over any big disputes?
Well, there are always big disputes, and every dispute is the biggest dispute in players' eyes, right? I guess if you do blitz and rapid, it's always harder, right? Because the player's not notating, and you have to be more attentive, and also, especially if you are not the only arbiter on one board, then it's always, you have to pay attention, right? So there was one blitz tournament where players were down in seconds, and one player knocked over a piece so much that it actually landed on the floor, right? And he pushed the clock, right? And the other time started, and then he picked up under opponent's time, and that's not correct. So I think recently in the past year that was the biggest dispute, because it was back and forth, and how
Did you guys have any problems in your careers? More recently, Fabi, did you have any problems?
I had one, albeit I'll try to get through the story quickly, because the whole saga took hours.
Oh my.
I was playing Sergei Karyakin in one of the FIDE Grand Prix events in Khanty-Mansiysk 2015. And at some point, it was a threefold repetition. And I didn't realize it, that I had just gone to a threefold repetition. I was on the better side. Sergei realized it, and he went to the arbiter, made the claim. Arbiter checks the score sheets, says, oh yeah, it's threefold repetition. Okay. I go back, I shake Sergei's hand. Then I check my score sheet. I'm like, wait, this is not a threefold repetition. I check it, it's only been 2 times. I go back to the arbiter, I'm like, it's 2 times. And I think that the correct decision from his point of view should have been, okay, you shook
reverse
hands,
himself.
You shook hands, and it's over, right?
Yes.
You've accepted
That's
the
what
result.
I think. That's,
Yes.
But the arbiter said, okay,
you have to play on.
continue.
Wow.
To me, that seemed like
Yeah.
a strange decision at the time, but
Yeah.
I was just
Young, and you accepted the arbiter.
Well, you were happy because you were up,
well, yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I would have accepted either way, but if he said you continue the game, we continue the game. And eventually I'm winning, but I mess up and we draw. And if I had won, I think it would have been a huge dispute, because Sergei would have undoubtedly written an appeal.
Yes.
Because it was probably an incorrect decision from a rules point of view. And then, but I already won the game, but we also agreed to draw, so it would have been a complete mess. Since we drew, there was no dispute, really, and the result stood. And Sergei complained to the press, but not like an official complaint.
Right.
That was the biggest that I can think of.
The rule in my time was very simple. If you signed the score sheet and your opponent signed the score sheet, that was it.
It's over, right?
Yeah. But if you didn't sign the score sheet, you said, I'm not happy with the outcome of this game, and I reserve my right to open up a discussion, you didn't sign the score sheet. But when you signed the score sheet, that was
In this case, I think we did.
you had signed the score sheet.
Even before signing the score, if you shook hands, then that's it.
Yeah, also.
That has to be binding.
Well,
right?
my favorite actually was at a U.S. championship. So I always served on these appeals committees, which was great, except I never had an appeal to decide.
Right.
So it was a game between Nick DeFermian and John Fedora. Nick DeFermian and Michael Rode, pardon me. John Fedora was on the appeals committee, and we were watching this game of the U.S. championship. So no question that Nick is winning. But his flag, it's an analog clock, is like as rigid as could be. So Michael's king gets run across the board. He goes and he goes to press the clock, and he accidentally, it wasn't deliberate, he knocked over his own king, and his king is prostrate on the board. Flag, you lose. And if he hadn't knocked over his king, he would have won on time. But the piece was over. So the arbiters got together. They got together and said, okay, we're going to give some extra time. They didn't say how much. The game continued. Like 5 moves later, top, the king's running across the board. He knocks over his king. The flag falls. Now at this point, the whole room is full of like, what's going to happen now? Now the arbiters decide to give a minute to Nick, which is a lot, and that would end the game. And John turns to me and says, thank God. If they'd only given him a few seconds and the flag had fallen, it would be 3-time repetition. I won the game 3 times on the clock. I'm cleaning a draw. Like what? It was like terrible.
Speaking of 3-time repetition, I do want to ask you, how can you game the system? So for example, you have like a really bad position. You know that you have a pretty bad position, and then you're going down to your last few seconds. Let's say it's a 2nd-time repetition, and you know that it's a 2nd-time repetition, but you stop the clock, and you're saying, let's check for 3-fold repetition.
Right.
In the meantime, while the arbiter goes and checks, you get, back in the days when you didn't have the computers and everything, you would get like 20 minutes. Now you would get maybe like 5 more minutes. You can game the system like that and give yourself some time to think.
Yeah,
Is there a way to deal with that?
Well, there's not really, right? You have to check it, and if the claim is not correct, not 3-fold, the opponent gets 1 or 2 minutes, or depending on time control of the original game. That's it.
I remember it was an instance in the Olympiad between Russia and China in the women's section, 2018 or 2016. And she claimed 3-fold, super difficult position. While they were checking it for like 10-15 minutes, she was like this, trying to figure out the position. Like she knew the
there's
claim
really
was
nothing we can
really
do.
bad.
Can't the arbiters tell the players you need to step away from the board?
I think that's reasonable, but I don't know. Honestly, I have to look it up. But
it's a loophole,
Yeah, it is a loophole, so that would be nice to close it. It is. I mean, there's nothing really we can do, right? The player claims the 3-fold, we have to check it, and that's it. There's no, like, they can do it over and over again. It's not like illegal move and you lose it the 2nd time and everything.
One of the most famous
like
stories
a fair play,
about,
It should be a fair play violation.
So kind of if you see that it's a fair play violation, then you can warn the player to stop doing that, right? If it's repetitive, really fast. Like today was a good 3-fold
Hikaru?
example.
Yeah.
No, it was in the Blitz tournament, the side event, right?
Oh.
So we were playing under Blitz conditions, right? And 2 arbiters over 29 or 13 boards or whatever, how many boards there were there. And Wasif, and I don't know who was the opponent.
Raja Harshit.
Yes, and Raja...
Yes. What happened?
Raja paused the clock and claimed 3-fold. I said, you didn't call me because under these conditions you have to call the arbiter so that I can observe, and then I can award the 3-fold if I see it. But if I don't see it and your opponent doesn't agree, then that's it. Then I can't. So Vasif got a minute, and then he found the win.
Because they weren't playing on televised or DGT boards, right?
No, they were.
Yeah, if they were on a DGT board, it would be possible
And I was right there, so all he had to do is say, arbiter, pause the clock, say, arbiter, I want you to focus on this game. Pause the clock, make the 3-fold, right, and then I could have won.
That's an interesting one. So first you have to ask the arbiter to come watch your game, and that's why they have arbiters for each board at the big events, at
Yeah,
the
of course,
Olympias.
yeah, of course.
They have one arbiter on each board watching everything like
Yeah,
a
but
hawk
for
all
example,
the time.
here in the American Cup, right, under Rapid and Blitz, if you guys needed to do that, and there
Yes,
was
the-
many matches still going on, and
But
Chris and
here
I are
it's,
only
there's
two.
DGT.
board.
DGT
Yeah,
is
yeah,
very
that's-
easy.
that's-
Yeah.
never mind, never mind, it's too late. Yeah.
Without the DGTs,
Yeah,
that's a
that
completely
would have-
different story.
Yeah, it's of course, yeah.
One of my great stories about rules. So a lot of people wrongly believe that the rules have been written in stone for 500 years.
Oh,
we
yeah.
made the last rules changes and they've never changed. They change all the time. And at one time there used to be a rule that you, the player, had to call the flag of the opponent. There could be no outside interference. Today, the arbiter calls the flag,
Yeah.
but there was a time that the players were responsible. There's this famous story of Sammy Reshevsky. He was playing the U.S. Open with hundreds of people watching, and he was in time trouble, and his opponent was thinking. There was a big time scramble, and from the front row, Mrs. Reshevsky jumped out of her seat and started shouting, "Flag! Flag! Flag!" And Sammy said, "I win." Stop the clock.
He has the best stories,
And it was
right?
sort of like everybody's in a shock, and the opponent, protested that there was outside
Yeah,
interference.
exactly.
And the arbiter said, "We got to continue." And Sammy said, "No. I went on time. There was no outside interference." I'm sorry, Sammy,
Yeah.
but there was
Yeah.
500 witnesses that heard your wife shout flag, flag. No. No outside interference. According to Talmudic law, my wife and I are one flesh. Sammy was awarded the win. We are one flesh. My wife and I are one flesh. Just keep that in mind.
You have
for
the
your
best
future,
stories ever, like, every
for your
time.
future matches.
I'm trying to remember, there was, because I once got this book of Paul Benko's
Yes.
autobiography. Really great book.
Yeah,
really
from
enjoyed it.
Jeremy Silman. Yeah.
Yeah. It first included his life story and then all his studies, games, and annotations. and everything.
Amazing.
And he had a story with Reshevsky, because if I recall correctly, they were not friends at all.
Nobody was friends with Sammy.
Yeah.
Sammy was not in polite company.
And he had a similar story about, and they were also both time trouble addicts, right?
Truly.
And I can't remember the story, but they had a story which involved time trouble and which involved an arbiter dispute. But I think in this case, the arbiter was a friend of Reshevsky,
Right.
and so the dispute was that Paul Benko was saying, well, they're colluding together.
It's a bias.
But I don't remember the details. I was actually hoping that you might
I don't
remember
know
that one.
those details, but one of my favorite stories on that was Mark Deason. Mark Deason and Sammy Reshevsky were playing in Lone Pine, California. These were great open Swiss events that were, very nice events. And Sammy said, "Are you playing for a win?" Which we have always interpreted as offer of a draw. So Mark started thinking and got down on the clock and stopped the clock and said, "I accept the draw." Sammy said, "I didn't offer you a draw."
Wow.
And when there were other people who were witnesses, and Sammy said to Isaac Kashdan, "They're lying. Sammy, they're lying." So Isaac Kashdan said, "You got to play. You got to continue play."
Yeah.
So there was Mark, really having to play on time, move directly. And then Sammy got into time trouble. And they had some very strange time control. I think 50 moves in 2.5 hours. It wasn't the 40 in 2 or something like that. So they started banging the clock and they went up to move 60. Okay? So they're banging the clock and I was watching the whole thing and there was a white pawn on A4. And bang, 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 and somehow this pawn just kind of got shaken off the table. I mean, it just disappeared. It just kind of vibrated away all by itself, right? And the final move was, of course, Sammy as black playing Queen B5, slapping the clock and the flag.
Yeah,
The flag. You guys made the time control. Now you got to reconstitute the game.
Score sheet, yes.
So there's the table over there, but now they started, with the score sheet E45, etc. And as they're getting closer and closer to the position,
There was a
There's
pawn.
no A4 pawn on that board, but on this board, the
There's an
A4
A4
pawn is still there.
Hasn't moved yet.
Right?
It hasn't moved yet.
And it's sort of like, you have to seal your move. And Mark Deason was like, and he wrote it as clearly as he possibly. He takes me.
There is a pawn there. There is definitely a pawn.
But you have to have seen those games where the pawns do kind of move off the board, and they don't stay on the square that they were stuck to.
Those things don't happen anymore. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Or-
I mean, so there was recently a tournament. I don't know if you were following this, the Armageddon Championship in
Berlin?
In
Berlin,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh.
And it ended
Yeah.
with Armageddon games, no increment.
Right.
Lenier played a game against Andrew Tang.
Angry Tang.
He also played a game against Ray Robson, but it wasn't as dramatic, but it also ended in a similar way. But against Andrew Tang, they're getting down to seconds. It's a rook end game, and then at some point, all the pieces are like,
Bang, 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 bang.
like they're just all,
Not on the squares. Yeah.
not even on the squares. They just all leave the board at the same time. There's no more pieces on the board. The pieces are rolling around. You don't know where anything is.
Right.
I think Lenier gets flagged in the end.
That's it.
That's the game. I
That's
guess
the Armageddon.
there was no chess. Like it was similar to this World Cup game between Olya Bedelka
Yeah. I
and
remember that.
who was the second player?
It's funny because I was coaching Badalka for.
Yeah.
She was still on my team, so we were discussing in between games. I'm trying to remember the name. I'm having a lapse.
Maybe it'll come to us. But
Everybody knows about that game.
yeah, it was another Armageddon game, and all the pieces are just on. They're not upright. They're just rolling around on the board, and Bedelka wins, I think, in the end. But the last few moves were not chess moves, and there
Right,
was,
they were just bang, bang,
obviously,
and the clock.
A lot of like public sentiment was this is not chess. This is
Right.
some,
Yeah.
The problem is when one player starts doing those type of loopy moves,
Right.
the other one responds
In the same way,
Like,
yeah.
you start to do it, I'm gonna do it as
And-
well, and then it turns into a complete mess.
And
that's the problem.
slap fest on the clock. Yeah.
Right.
But correct me if I'm wrong. You can call an arbiter at any moment that an illegal move is played, right? That a move
Absolutely,
is not
yeah.
executed
Yeah,
from one
absolutely.
square to
Pause the
another.
clock, come get the arbiter. Yeah.
So it would seem
properly.
that players would know this by now that you call the arbiter
Yeah.
and
They
my
get caught
opponent
up
has-
in the moment.
Yeah.
Is what
Yeah.
happens, right?
I think the heat of the moment, you don't want to be the one stopping the clock, right?
Right.
I don't know. There's something
But
like you
then
want
it
to
also
continue the
gives
game, you want to
advantage
make
to
the
your
moves.
opponents. Think about the position, right? If while you still call the arbiter and
Yeah.
everything. I think a lot of players doesn't want to stop the clock because if they feel that okay,
They don't know
that
how the
gives-
position, the
Yeah,
assessment of the position
yeah,
is. They don't
exactly.
want to stop. Yeah, it's
but
a
if-
decision. It's a decision that
If,
you either
if
make
someone
or not.
has in an Armageddon game, let's say it's 5 seconds each, they're both about to
Yeah,
run
a
out of
minute
time,
can do a lot.
and they make a move, the piece rolls off the board, and they press the clock. That's an illegal move, right?
That is
Wouldn't
because-
the opponent get extra time for that? Which
1
would be,
minute, yeah.
Which would be game deciding,
Yeah,
right?
1 minute, and that's
Yeah,
why Wasi
because-
won today.
Right.
Yeah.
It would really clear up these whole scrambles.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
nobody would be
Yeah.
carelessly
I mean,
placing their
Vasi
pieces
won
in.
today because he got a minute and he found the
Yeah,
moves
exactly.
under 1 minute.
Did he?
Yeah, he won.
He beat Raja Harshit in
Yeah.
the game that.
Because I gave him 1 minute because Raja
Oh,
was
Vasif,
yeah.
not Wesley. Oh, I was like
Vasif.
Vasif. I thought you said
Vasif.
Wesley.
No,
I was
no,
like,
no, Wesley.
We were watching.
No.
There was no
And I
1
wasn't
minute
there
for-
today, right?
Right,
Most of the games,
right.
yeah.
I remember FIDE World Championship for rapid chess, and it was between Garry Kasparov and Evgeny Badiev. It was played in France, and it was a big playing hall, and the hall was packed. And there they were on the stage, and it was kind of one of these 30-minute games with no increment, and it was bang, 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 bang. And the whole screen froze. Like, no moves were played. Bang, 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 bang. Shaking of hands, signing of score sheet. An exultant Kasparov walks off stage. And everybody's like, what happened? Well, what happened? It was a DGT-enabled board. But Kasparov was white. He had a pawn on f3 and a white king on g3. And black had a rook on a3, and Kasparov played f4, which was illegal, and the DGD board didn't process it, right? And it was just stuck there. It didn't allow the move
Didn't
f4.
show the move.
And they went bang, 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 and they signed the score sheets and everything like this, and that was... It was an illegal move. Garry won the game, and he won the world championship.
So what is actually the rule? If someone makes an illegal move and their opponent doesn't notice it, let's say you play f4, like in this example, and the rook's on a3, and they play rook to a8. Does the game continue after rook to a8?
Yeah, it continues. Like if you're still in check, you have to resolve the check, but otherwise, yeah.
But can the black player say, sorry, I made an illegal, it was an illegal position, let's go back to that position? Can the black player do that?
That's an interesting question. Let me think.
Because I heard something, and I don't know if it's according to the rule book, I heard there's like a 5-move rule.
Well, under certain
that's
time
what I wanted
control,
to ask.
Under normal time control, yeah, but under rapid or blitz, that's not a fire. That's not.
Okay.
So my understanding is we start the game. You and I are experienced grandmasters, but the king and queen are the wrong squares. And we play, as you said, 5 moves, and I think it is 5 moves. And I go, oh, geez, I'm sorry, the king and queen are in the wrong squares. And you go, no, let's keep them that way.
So that would stand.
So and it's 10 moves and the classical time control. Yeah, 10 moves. Yeah.
10 moves.
10 moves.
10 moves.
10
So if somehow we managed to play without noticing that our
the
piece...
king and
Yes.
queen were in the wrong squares.
Then
after
after 10 moves, it stays. Before 10
can the
moves,
players agree to change it back, or does it stay? no
after
matter?
10 moves, you cannot. Before 10 moves, you can.
But what happens to castling?
Well, you got a castle.
Well, you can still castle with the same rules, right? Just the other side, right? So,
You can castle queenside by playing king b1, rook c1?
yeah. It's
It's weird,
I
right?
know,
I
it's
think
weird.
that your
change
king
like
is on
Fischer
D1.
random, like king...
Hey, but think of
well,
it this way: if
same
your
like
king is
Fischer
on
random,
D1,
you can castle, right?
But it wouldn't be like kingside, it would be like king c1, rook d1, not king b1, rook c1.
so you have a white king on D1, and
Yeah.
you want to castle queenside.
Yeah.
So I think it would go to B1, and the rook would go
B1,
to C1.
B1, yeah.
But
It's
then
always,
how cool
it's
it would
always
be-
2 squares, the king,
Yeah, but
right?
Fischer random is king c1, rook d1.
Yes,
So it wouldn't be
but
according to
this
Fischer
is
random.
but this is a classical game.
This is
where
on
we
Fischer
misplaced-
random.
Yeah, where we misplaced with king and queen.
Yeah, interesting. I'll look that up. I
It's
don't
hard to
know
imagine
if
that ever happening. between,
Right.
like,
But
experienced
think
players,
of how
but-
cool castling kingside would be in the Rui Lopez, where the king and queen are misplaced, right? You get your rook on E1 in one turn.
Yeah.
Judith, thank you very much for joining us. I'm
Thank
not
you.
going to hold you for longer
Thank you.
because there's
Thank
a
you.
party going on.
Of
but
course, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Absolutely.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going
Wow.
to try to get Levon also.
Of course. Well, he would probably have stories of illegal moves. T.
I'm invited.
Yeah.
Hello, you're invited.
This
Yes.
elite?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So you know this
Well,
makes you by far our most
Welcome guest.
I mean, we've
Yes.
had you on so many times.
I haven't been cancelled yet.
You haven't been
We're working on it. We're hoping you'll say something very special.
All right, let's talk about the big match between you two guys because I really enjoyed that. Everybody enjoyed that. I mean,
It was the
we
greatest
were on
match
the
I've
edge
ever
of-
Except
called.
us.
You guys
No,
probably
you
enjoyed
were
it.
suffering.
I didn't enjoy it.
You guys were suffering. But
You
we
enjoyed it
loved
at the end, but I mean, everybody was suffering in between. It was back and forth, back and forth. and,
Wow.
I mean, we really enjoyed that. Let's talk about that. Yeah, who wants to? Whatever. Yeah. Why don't
Oh.
you start, Fabi?
No, I mean, I got a lot of like good emotions during this match because whenever you make a comeback at some point, you get some very
Yeah.
like some ecstasy. Yeah, like after this long game that I won,
Yeah, sure.
basically from. But at the end, of course, like there was such heartbreak.
Yeah.
Not because I understand our matches can go any way, but that it was so close, and I.
Oh yeah, that game that I mean, by some miracle, I won in Pirts.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would be heartbroken.
I was so heartbroken after
No,
this
because
match.
he had like 30 seconds,
yeah.
and I had 3 seconds,
Yeah.
Right.
and I was not controlling anything.
No.
I was tilting,
No, you were just responding to every threat he was making. You were surviving.
and then his queen got to F7. I'm like, oh my god, am I getting mated?
Yeah.
No.
No, miracle.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
No, I mean, for us as commentators, it was extraordinary. No, I mean, the drama, the excitement, the thrill, what the heck is going on? And every game is decisive and it's going back and forth. But I can imagine for yourselves, is like, oh, this is torture. Like I was so close to victory. Oh no. So, I mean, how did you? recover? How do you?
But there
deal
were
with
some
these
interesting.
emotions?
There were some interesting opening discussions also. You were playing this Rui Lopez with black, with D6, G6, and then F5. The first game was pretty suspicious. I mean, you got a losing position.
Well, first we started. I played b5, bishop c5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And for sure, I got a very good opening.
Oh.
Position after the opening, h5, I'm doing very well. And for some reason, I quickly played this terrible move f5, and after that, my position is busted. Like very, very bad position. Yeah.
Yeah, I made some mistake. I mean, in process,
Yeah.
of course,
At
but it
some-
was one type of a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. It was bad. I mean, I think I had like 5% chance to survive after f5. Yeah, it was like just one moment. Yeah. Even though it was good, I just wanted to switch because I thought it's easier to play d6, g6. You just place your pieces. You don't have to think about anything on the king side. Like not so responsible. And I remembered because I checked the file in between the games. I remembered bishop e3, black plays knight e7, and I even remembered it showed 0 equals and under it a plus. And I thought I remembered this, and then afterwards, I see that I completely imagined everything. There was no note that said 97 black is better. This is just in my imagination.
Invention.
But I was so sure of it that I played it twice.
And I made the same mistake twice.
Even after losing the first time, I was still convinced. I must have been better. Yeah.
I like it.
But this is not the only time that it happened in this tournament. You took on c6. Hikaru also played this suspicious Kalashnikov with Wesley twice,
Right.
and he got like losing positions both times. But he was
Rosalimo, no? Or not Kalashnikov?
Was it Rosalimo? Oh,
Rosalimo,
yeah.
yeah.
Rosalimo, the Rosalimo, yeah. The structures became
Oh, the
almost
C5.
like a
This
Sveshnikov.
is a terrible move.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. And he was playing it so confidently.
Right.
It's Magnus's move.
And then he finishes in like +1, yeah. But still, you make some moves, 3+2, anything can happen with imbalanced positions. Yeah.
I love the format. You guys?
Oh, the
you
format was.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Would you use this format for a U.S. championship, for other prestigious events?
Well, to me, like I don't understand one thing because to
Please.
me this is a U.S. championship. Like it has the best
The
players
American
in the
Cup.
U.S. in
Yeah,
match.
actually,
in
it's
match
even
format.
stronger.
So I understand you call it the American Cup, American Championship, but you shouldn't have the same format twice. It makes no sense.
That's true.
Twice in a year, you have exact same format and you call it different things. I mean, one should be one format, one should be another format. You can call it whatever you want.
And also, I like this distinction. When you have a championship, it's classical, but the World Cup, there's also lots of rapid.
Right.
So Cup or
American Cup, the word cup can be coupled with different time controls
yeah,
as opposed to championship.
yes.
Like championship is more
That
serious,
was an
more
accident, by the
formal.
way. I mean, I don't know if the event organizers take that into account. But wait a minute, we have Singfield Cup, right?
We do have Secret Cup, yeah.
Wait a minute, but the Singfield Cup has tie breaks, or you used
But
to
so
have
does
tie
the
breaks.
American Championship.
Yes.
We have very often ends in a playoff.
Okay, invalid point. Invalid point on my part.
You got caught.
Okay,
You got
finally,
caught.
he's
All right.
off the air. That's it. No more invitations. We were wondering, how do we get rid of Love?
No, I like the format, but some variety is not bad. Some classical chess. I mean, not everything has to be rapid and blitz. Yeah?
No, of course not.
Of course not.
Now-
I'm just saying, as a commentator,
I
just
guess a
was
better question
entertaining.
would be, what about the classical portion of it? Can this specific classical with no second time control replace the usual classical with 2 or 3 time controls?
I generally think you need some sort of like 15 seconds, 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
After the 40 moves.
Yeah, come on. I mean,
Bathroom break.
yeah. Just some.
So you almost don't consider
Basic.
this classical?
It doesn't feel very classical to me.
I actually think it has the opposite effect because when you shorten the time control to like blitz or rapid, then you have a lot of decisive results. But if you shorten it but keep it classical, then you have tremendous amount of draws. It's usually the case because people play very safe. You can still play very safe when this is kind of 90 minutes,
Yeah.
but you don't want to get into time trouble, so you don't take kind of extreme risks that you might.
Interesting, because there was a lot of decisive games in the tournament, but not a lot of decisive classical games,
Yeah.
especially in the
I think
Open.
actually just in this format, just to eliminate this classical portion, make it rapid matches, and make it like shortening rapid matches. It could be
So basically, elimination bracket pretty much all the way through.
yeah, why not? Why not?
Intriguing.
I don't understand this classical portion. We had 95% draws. What was the
Well, have classical
high.
chess, but have this at least as 15 minutes, or
Yeah, or
so
that.
people can just relax at some point.
Guys,
some
I
risks.
mean, I'm not even on the podcast, but I got to ask you a question because you're talking about classical chess, and I absolutely hate the time control for the World Chess Championship match, as I hate the time control for the World Championship Candidates Tournament. There's no other tournaments in the world or matches that use this 3 time controls of 40 and 2, 20 and 1, 30 plus 30. Up till that time, you're not using the increments, and there's no other tournaments in the world. And now the World Championship match is being decided by a time control that nobody plays. What's your thoughts?
I mean,
come on, guys.
You've played it. You've played that time control. So in that particular
we've all
setting,
played, we've all played it, yeah, I guess. But
with
yeah,
those stakes in
I
that
don't
particular
understand
setting.
one thing. Like, why does FIDE they have some uniform classical, uniform rapid? Instead, we're playing. Everything is different. Yeah, every
Every
we play.
time.
Sometimes we play 90 and 30 in FIDE events. Sometimes we play these like 3 time controls, like you mentioned.
Right?
At least have some sort of uniform for classical, uniform for rapid, uniform
for
for blitz.
blitz.
I mean, it's normal, right?
Right. So the reason I complained so vociferously just now is because of the tournament he won in Dusseldorf. I had, and I'm not joking, I think I had an 8-hour broadcast
Yeah, it was
in one single day.
8 or 9 hours.
I was like, brutal.
I was enjoying watching.
Oh yeah, right. Watching. Thank you, Levon. What are friends for?
He was coming to dinner with so much hunger in his eyes. It was a joy.
Look, I was on all fours, coming into the dinner room, please. And I'm waiting for the guy to say, "I'm sorry, we closed the kitchen 3 minutes ago."
Speaking of the World Championship match, I want to finish it on this note, since we probably won't see you before the World Championship match starts. Predictions. Let's go. Let's start with you.
I think Jan will win. I have a feeling.
Jan will win. Why?
Well, he already played the World Championship match.
Experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
That helps.
And I think there is way too much pressure on Ding.
You think so?
Yeah, somehow I have this feeling for this tournament. Is the first chance for a Chinese player, actually, in history, ever to come close.
There's a very heavy narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. On his shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah, all the party is going to be there. I guess he has. They were saying something like 30 helpers.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot.
A lot of people is never good.
Yeah.
But that's interesting, yeah, because we weren't sure whether he's going to have any team at all. He hasn't been traveling with a huge team. We've seen
the
him
past,
recently
no.
at Tata Steel. He didn't have anybody with him.
But I'm not sure, like, this whole team. I don't buy this
You
whole
don't think
team
so,
thing. Yeah, I mean, I saw his interview. He said that he was like
We've
working,
seen some pictures right
working
now.
remotely with people. So, okay, I mean, this photo with like 30 people, like he's not working with 30 people.
I thought that was a goodbye photo.
that
Like
was
it was
kinda
like a
like,
reception. Good luck and have a
going.
nice have a nice time in
But
Astana.
I
I'm going to go with Napa for different reasons.
Everybody's taking
I don't
Napa,
have this like psychic insight, but Napa for me has improved his confidence. He's a different person, having gone through Dubai in the World Championship match, and he just feels like he's playing better chess, more confident chess. And that's why I'll pick Nepo. But I am expecting a good match.
I think he has this enough nastiness about him. One world
You need a
championship
little.
match.
You need a little killer. You need a
Yeah,
little
you
killer?
need this kind of annoying nastiness.
Right.
It's
Well,
very
that's
useful
what-
for a world
that's-
championship
I
match.
felt it from Ding also a little bit.
I never felt it.
Really?
I mean, I felt it in his moves, but not in his
In
not
his moves, in his moves,
not in
yeah.
his demeanor.
Not in
his
this
demeanor,
kind.
Yeah, in his moves, very often
But
when
quite
he's in
often,
good shape. When
quite
he's in good
often,
shape.
it's important to have in your demeanor. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much. Let's
Thank
party,
you.
yeah.
And good luck with the podcast. You guys got to get to 100,000. Come on, come on,
right.
people.
Come on,
Help them,
people.
help them.
Okay,
Subscribe.
subs, let's go.
Let's go.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Good work.
Good work.
Anybody else?
No, we're done.
No?
We're done.
It's fine. We're good.